on the headphones. And I'm going to go ahead and share this video. You can share it too if on your social media.
Okay.
KLK 102.5 FM. Good afternoon to you once again on your Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. We are still doing our series of political interviews, and join us live in the studio. We have LJ Bryant, who is running for mayor of Jonesboro. And what happened with my mic? Oh, was it my headphones? Okay, I'm still got meters going. So he is running for mayor of Jonesboro. And of course, got to start with the disclaimer. Kayla Ken, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, does not endorse, support, or oppose any candidate for office. We do these interviews for informational purposes only, but we do encourage you to exercise your right to vote. So LJ, how you doing today?
Good, man. How are you? Good to see
I kind
you.
of come a little closer to that mic.
Yeah, you got me?
Okay. All right.
Good.
So I'm sure a lot of people know who you are, but for those who may not be familiar with you, just kind of let people know about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'll try to keep it short. So I'm LJ Bryant, been on the city council since 2017. So been elected 2 times to the city council. And here we are running for mayor. So I look forward to us talking a lot more today about the issues in the city.
Okay. And for a good little while now, maybe even up to a year, you have been much more vocal with how things are going in Jonesboro. So at what point did you make the decision, I need to step up and be, and if I want change, to be the change in which I seek?
Yeah, so I would say, kind of from the beginning, I worked on a variety of issues. Probably one of the bigger things I worked on early on was changing half of the city council to ward-based. I did that somewhere in the 2020 range. And then kind of before that, me and McLean and Dr. Coleman, we worked on Martin Luther King. So we worked on some of those issues there for several years, landscaping, sidewalks, whatever. First 3 or 4 years worked on that. Probably in the last, I'm going to say 4 years, I've been really concerned about spending, and I've really fought wasteful spending. That's been something I've been really concerned about. And then, I'm going to say in the last 9, 10 months, I've been really concerned and spoke out, about how our employees are getting treated and some other issues along those lines.
And of course, I remember, especially with the situation with Rachel Anderson, because I remember you were sending emails to the media fairly often, because, I would get those emails. So, you definitely have been speaking out. So, again, kind of what at points that I need to go ahead and just run.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I would say somewhere around last summer, people started talking to me and everything about it. And I was concerned about where we were on several different issues. Don't get me wrong. And I was listening to folks and appreciated their encouragement. But probably somewhere around the Rachel Anderson thing, that was just really kind of what I guess in some ways made my mind up for me. I mean, I really like to see all people be treated fairly, and particularly the folks that work at the city. So that was probably something that I guess you'd say pushed me off the edge, or really got me on the path to being serious about running.
Okay, and I'm looking on your website, which is ljbryant.com, and here you have, strategic goals and objective, and you have 10 goals. Number 1 is reduce crime. Number 2 is reduce poverty. 3 is fund a comprehensive trail system. 4 is reduce the mosquito population. I can't endorse you, but I'm definitely in favor of that one, no matter who wins. Number 5 is reach out to more students at A-State campus. Goal 6 is achieve financial viability. Goal 7, make Jonesboro user-friendly toward developers. 8 is reorganize the mayor's office and city government. Goal 9 is achieve total transparency. And goal 10 is develop and maintain outside partnerships. So of these 10, which do you feel is the most important, the one that you're most passionate about?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, they all matter to me a ton. Don't get me wrong. But, I mean, just to try to hit a couple of those, because we can't hit all 10 probably today, but crime being a big one, right? I mean, as we sat here in the studio, we had a shooting on Virginia Drive a couple Sundays ago. And that same Sunday, we had something happen in the Fairview area and the Fox Meadow area. And in those instances, shots were fired into the street. And so that's been something. I've got a little baby, it's 9 months old. And so for me, first and foremost concern, all the other things matter. Don't get me wrong, right? We got to have parks and we got to have less mosquitoes, and all the other things are super important, state students. But first and foremost, people need to feel safe. So we've got to invest our resources there. And something I've voted against very consistently for years is expanding the admin side of government, taking the mayor's office from 3 people to 5 people. I was opposed to that. Taking the communications office from 3 people to 4 people. I was opposed to that. I really want to see us invest resources in our people at the police department, and ultimately in all the things that are going to directly benefit our citizens. So anyway, I'm happy to visit in more detail, but if I had to put it at the top, I'm going to say crime. And then the other piece of crime is making Jonesboro an attractive place to live, to change the mix of who we attract to town. And that certainly comes into the trail systems and comes into reducing mosquitoes. And then A-State being a critical part of that. They're attracting kids to town. We have to do our part to keep those kids in town.
Okay, let's get back to the crime just for a bit. So if you are elected, what will you do to address crime here in Jonesboro?
Yeah, sure. So I would say there's nothing easy about solving any problem in government, right? You've always got more problems. I always have a lack of resources, all those kind of things. But I'm going to just kind of hit just a few little buckets of things as it relates to crime. And poverty is tied into that, of course, as well. So I want to see us invest resources so that PD has the resources to put some officers on foot downtown and in parks. And we have e-bikes already for the officers, but we've often not had enough folks to really allow them to ride in rideable areas of town. We really want our officers to have the resources to have a real uniform presence, particularly in parks and downtown and in neighborhoods, to try to visually deter, of course. And then the other pieces, and Scott Roper's really worked hard on this at code enforcement, the other pieces are making sure that we have the pieces, and particularly the ordinances in place as it relates to code enforcement, to make sure that we have quality housing here. It's important to have affordable housing, of course. This has to be an affordable place for people to live and raise a family. But if we have dilapidated structures and the rent's $200 a month, that might not necessarily attract the folks that we're looking for. So some of these things are really hand in hand connected. And back on the poverty piece as well, which relates to the code enforcement piece, but we have to make sure that there's economic opportunities for all people here. And there's a lot of people working hard, not just at A-State, but there's industrial leaders really trying to work with Jonesboro Public Schools to make sure that we give all of our kids the resources they need to earn a good living, because the best money we can ever spend are on kids. Sometimes adults are hard to move and hard to help, but anything we can do to help kids have a better economic opportunity, because they're going to be here and raise a family.
Okay, and one of the things that you mentioned in all of that, in part of your platform, is you want to reduce things on the administrative side. So if you get elected mayor of Jonesboro, do you anticipate, and I know you got to obviously look at things before you make a decision, but do you anticipate, cutting some positions or even changing some department heads?
Yeah, sure. So I would say specifically as it relates to the mayor's office, it's in my 10 points to cut the size of the mayor's office. Mayor Perrin was mayor for 12 years, had 3 staff, and then before the current mayor took office, he immediately asked for 2 additional staff before he ever took office. So if Mayor Perrin can do it with 3, so can we. The communications office was expanded to 4 from 3, which I voted against. Not necessary. I mean, we could just kind of go through and through that in 4 years, we have a 13% increase in the head count in city government, and an 8% increase at the police department. So it's important that make good use of our resources and treat this like a blend of a nonprofit and a business to make sure that we're super responsible. And as it relates to department heads and such, yeah, I mean, from the outside, way too hard to judge. I mean, you have a working relationship with those people being on the city council, but you have to go in there and say, here's what my goals are, here's what my vision are. Do you want to be part of that, and how can we get there together? Okay,
and let's kind of talk a little bit just about the campaign itself for a minute. I've been noticing your signs all over Jonesboro. You can't miss them there, the green LJ for Jonesboro signs. Again, that's not an endorsement. But also on social media, I've been seeing at your events that the people who are attending your events kind of run the gauntlet. I've seen conservatives, I've seen liberals. So it seems like you've got some momentum there going.
Well, we feel good about it. I mean, I feel like if you looked at, we're having another fundraiser tonight, probably our final one, just because we're out of time. But I think if you looked at the host of the people that are on our events, I mean, I think you would see people that are kind of traditionally on the left and Democrats, like somebody like Scott McDaniel, and you might see Dan Sullivan in our fundraiser. And I mean, you might just see a wide array of people from different walks of life. Because the thing, I was visiting with somebody yesterday, and they were saying, well, you know, if you went and talked to this group, what would you say? And if you talked to this group, what would you say? And I said, I've got a 10-point plan. I'm not changing my speech. I mean, the things that I'm concerned about and want to fight for as it relates to crime and quality of life and mosquitoes and helping A-State, I don't have a different message for each group. And so I hope and think that our broad range of support has maybe been a result of that.
Now, of course, before we got on the air, you mentioned that you planned on knocking on 10,000 doors. That's a pretty ambitious goal.
It is. We did it. I had an opponent 6 years ago, and I was back then. We were still running citywide, and so that's exactly what I did 6 years ago when I had an opponent. And I won by 10 points. Would I have won the election anyway? Maybe. Maybe I would have. Maybe I wouldn't have. But I don't think I would have won by 10 points without it. And so I think it's vital. And of course, I'm going to things and shaking hands with folks, and I've done several events today. But a lot of folks don't necessarily make it outside their house. Like, you got to show up on their front door and see them. So starting this upcoming Monday, that's basically exclusively what I'll be doing 6 days a week all the way up until the election, going out and seeing folks and knocking on their door. And if they're not home, maybe I can talk to them on their Ring doorbell camera, or I'll leave something on their door so that they'll know that I came by.
Okay, well, I got a ring, so if you come by my house, I'll either be there or be here. Okay, so I'm looking on your website, which once again is ljbryant.com, and you have a section on your website that is leadership accomplishments. I'm not going to go through them, but just how would your leadership accomplishments and even your time on the city council, how do you feel like that's prepared you for mayor if you get elected?
Yeah, no, I think 7 years on the city council and having served with two mayors, you know, to kind of see the contrast, see how they've done things in a variety of, you know, probably 8 or 9 budgets by the time this is all said and done, and seen good times and bad times and tornadoes and COVID and, you know, raises and just all the different things that have come across in city government, and things that we have done, and we've had success with certain things, obviously, and then other things that we've talked about and struggled with. Like, we have the One Jonesboro plan that we adopted, but we've not made meaningful progress on. So I think for me, you know, kind of at the top of the interview, you said, hey, what made you want to run? And there were a variety of things, but being on city council is great. Everybody on the city council is super great and makes a meaningful impact. But I think I felt like for me to make more meaningful progress on the issues that we talked about today, I needed to have a different chair other than just one of the 12 chairs. You know, I had to have something that on a daily basis I could try to help move the needle on some of these issues.
So you want the middle chair?
The middle chair. There you go.
All right. So one thing, and I think I've even asked this in past interviews with you, the thing that people always talk about is North Jonesboro. Like, how do we build up North Jonesboro? And of course, obviously some progress has been made with the new swimming pool, which KLK had the very first community event at that pool. So definitely happy to make that little bit of history. But if you get elected, what will you do to revitalize and build up North Jonesboro?
Yeah, sure. So I'll answer that in a couple different ways, and I'll begin by tying any infill development. And I'll put North Jonesboro on that. Charles Mabry's over there buying lots, and Weston Wagner's over there buying lots, amongst other people. We've got to have people in the core of town, and I consider North Jonesboro the core of town. I mean, the more densely populated of North Jonesboro and the West End. What can we do to incentivize people to help redevelop both of those areas? And one of the reasons I'm going to lump them together only for a moment is to say that from a city perspective, you know, we already have to maintain the streets and run a trash truck down the road and all those kinds of things. What we're missing is a density of population. So there's a lot of similarities between, say, Burke Avenue and North Fisher or North Madison. You know, there's a lot of similarities in the sense that you have some older structures. So what can we do to help incentivize that redevelopment and provide a quality place for people to live and an affordable place to live? But north of Johnson, we've historically not had the development that we need to have happen, particularly on the commercial development side, and honestly, even on the residential side. And from a city perspective, we don't need to continue just to have everything develop out in the hinterlands. It's vital to us to have every piece of town, and particularly when we talk about A-State and the success of A-State, a big piece of that is everything that comes close to A-State being, something that's headed in the right direction.
Okay, and speaking of A-State, goal number 5 on your list is reach out to more students on ASU campus, learn the goals, and help them achieve those goals after graduation by making the city more desirable for young people. So do you currently have any A-State students on your team, or if not, do you plan to add them, and will you have them as a part of your administration should you get elected?
Yeah, so I've got a lot of young people involved in the campaign, some of which are freshly out of college, and we've got young kids too. I've got people like Harrison Hargett and stuff involved in the campaign, and Reese Smith, who's a junior at Valley View. So we've got a variety of young people, but having their perspective is super vital. And we've put together kind of an informal group of young advisors on the campaign. Most of those are probably 22 to 25 years old, but really hearing their perspective, because even at 37, which some people would say is young, I guess I still see that as somewhat young, but what I found at 37, I don't even know how to create an Instagram reel. Like, it's amazing. Like, I mess around on Instagram and I'm like, I don't know how to do this. And so your classic problem in politics is that the median age person in this town, 34 years old, something about like that, and your median age voters in their mid-50s. And so ultimately, a lot of times you wind up spending your time as a politician really trying to appeal to that 50-year-old plus crowd, which is fine. They have needs that need to be listened to too, but we have to develop a city that the people in the under 35 crowd want to stay and raise a family and work.
Okay, and of course you mentioned about working to improve economic development with the business sector of Jonesboro, but I kind of want to get your thoughts and potential plans for helping the nonprofit community, because we have several nonprofits, including KLEK, that provide services to the community with passion and with a heart to serve. But with nonprofits, a lot of times we don't have the resources to make as much of an impact as we would like to. So if you get elected, what will you do to help the nonprofits, especially the small ones here in Jonesboro, be able to better fulfill their missions?
Yeah, so I would say a few things on that specifically. I mean, obviously the city has CDBG money that we give to various nonprofits, and kind of my perspective on that, and just in general as it relates to the city helping nonprofits, is what I'm going to call well-established organizations like KLEK, the Hispanic Center, the Senior Life Center that St. Bernard's runs. Those type entities that have the staff, that have the mission. It's really, really important that we help them. Sometimes they'll be more of a startup. It's like, hey, I kind of want to do this nonprofit thing, and I'm just this really nice person, and I have a good idea. That's not all bad by any means, but sometimes in city government, we've given those folks attention almost at the detriment of really giving the attention that we need to really establish nonprofits. And I think what KLAK does to disseminate information is super important, because the biggest challenge we have now for anybody about anything is there's too many forms of media, right? I mean, newspaper and TV and social media and radio, and there's all these different things, and it's so hard to get a message out to people. So I appreciate what you guys try to do to spread the message, particularly as it relates to politics and government.
And you're right, it is definitely not easy. And you pretty much not, even though we are a radio station, we have to take advantage of the other platforms. I tell people that I said radio pretty much is our foundation. It's what gave us legitimacy, because luckily can't everybody just get an FM license now. But we had to build on that foundation by doing things like live streaming events, having social media. I'm not that great at making reels either, so don't feel bad. I mean, I know how to do one. I'm just not that great at it. So it's definitely important to have those people who, those are the things that they are good at, so you can have those on your team. All right, so I'm looking at goal 9, which is achieve total transparency in all city operations. So if you get elected, what will you do to promote transparency?
Yeah, and I think part of that's just a cultural shift. I mean, because I see it a lot. I mean, city council members will often get copied on request from citizens, and I just don't see them getting the answers that they want in a timely fashion. And oftentimes it's almost an intentional runaround to see if they'll go away, and you really just create more work for yourself than if you would just give them the information in the first place. And Arkansas has pretty strong FOIA laws, which is fortunate and good for the citizens. I know sometimes for politicians it's annoying, regardless of what politician you are, but it's really important that the citizens know what's going on and they have a right to the information. And the sooner you provide it to them, the better off you're going to be. There's no need making it harder than it has to be.
All right, and Of course, we got about maybe 3 or 4 minutes left. Is there anything else that you wanted to say to the listeners and viewers out there? Any of the points that we may not have covered or anything else that you want to touch on?
I think I would just say this, that, we're 55 days, I think, until the election, and obviously 4 folks running for mayor, and there could be a runoff depending on what happens, of course. But most importantly, this election will be over, honestly, before you know it. And it's important that everybody work together, whoever wins the election, whoever wins city council elections, whoever wins the mayor's race. And it's important for the community to come together to try to accomplish things together. So, there'll be division inside of a campaign. Unfortunately, that's just the course of what happens. People have to make a choice, this one, that one. But when it's all said and done, I hope everybody can come together and build a better Jonesboro, whoever the winner might be, various city council races or the mayor's race.
And definitely appreciate that attitude. But go ahead and make the case on why you should be that person.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. So, for me, selfishly, right, because every politician's going to say how great they are. Dolly Parton says, if you don't toot your own horn, nobody will know you're coming. So I think for me, if you look at my record, 7 years on the city council, I've often been one of 2 to 3 people to lead something or do something that wasn't popular, but I didn't mind. For me, it's more important that I do the right thing than be popular. And so the things that I've outlined in my 10-point plan, if I were to win, I'd throw them on the wall, be 100% focused on them every day, and there'll be things come up, right? Just like the things we talked about at the top of the interview. You've got your COVIDs and your tornadoes and all the things that happen that sometimes divert your attention. But if you're not laser focused on your mission, and whether that's in business or nonprofit or government, time will disappear. Time's the greatest thief of all. I see that with my little 9-month-old baby. It's just amazing when you go back in pictures, so you got to use your time well.
All right. And of course, final question. If you get elected mayor, how will you be accessible to the citizens of Jonesboro?
Yep. So my cell phone's been the same since 1998, I think, when I was about 11 years old and got it. That's back when we had one area code, 501-412-3930. And my email's been the same since the beginning of time, too, lj@ljbryant.com. So I'll continue to be accessible always. And, of course, whatever my city channels might be at that point if I were to win.
All right. Well, thank you so much for stopping by the studio. We've been speaking with LJ Bryant, nonpartisan candidate for mayor of Jonesboro, and of course, KLK and the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. We do not endorse, support, or oppose any candidate for office, but we do encourage you to exercise your right to vote because, like I always say, someone is going to sit in that middle seat and make decisions that affect you. So why not have a say in who that person is? All right. That's going to do it for this edition of our political series of interviews. You guys have a great and blessed day. This is KLK on 2.5 FM.